What is your Tinder horror story? Story 1. Went on a date with an Australian who had just moved here 2 weeks before, so she doesn't know anybody. Went on a first date to a pub which was completely fine. She was a bit of a force of nature, spoke a mile a minute, but we got on. Second date, we went to a really budget pub at her request because she has only just got a job, so she hasn't been paid. Then she wanted to see some live music, so I took her to this really cool live music pub about 30 minutes away. We got there and the band were cool, but after she spoke to and annoyed everyone there, to the point that one of the girlfriends of the band asked me if I was seeing the red flags yet. So I tried to just move her back to near where we both live, but on the way back home she said we should go to this big Aussie Kiwi hangout bar because she wants a drink. We get there and it's closed, but a few people say we should join them for drinks. I slightly talk her out of it and she's like, yeah fine, cause I need a piss. I take her round the corner, stood in front of her so she can piss with a degree of privacy, but then during her piss I hear something splat and hit the ground. I turn around and behind her I see a big splat of diarrhea, like it was a fluorescent color that shouldn't have come out of a person, but it just seemed to have fallen out of her. So she's like, what do I do? Oh wait, I have the plastic wrap from the CD I just bought from the band. So she wipes herself with that, which isn't very absorbent, more smeary. I just quickly offered to call her a cab, but she declines and is then telling me we should go find those people to go drink again. I firmly said no. She then kisses me and walks off. Story 2. Met this really cute girl on Tinder. She was really cool and we got along pretty well. I forget how our first date went, but after hanging out a few times, I went over to her place and we hooked up. It was pretty great, except that I forgot in her bio that she was fluent in German. And so mid-coitus this very cute blonde is shouting in German, which, no offense to the Germans, isn't exactly the sexiest language in the book. It was so unexpected and I was terrified. Another time we went to grab a drink at a bar and she obviously knew the bartender and we were all chatting it up. She was hanging on me and we had some PDA going on. After the bartender left I asked how she knew him and she told me that he was her ex-husband. I was a bit shocked because we were all 20-something. When she went to the bathroom, he leaned over and asked me how I took to the German in bed, and I still was a bit shocked, just said it's alright. He winked at me and she came back. Weird girl, nice guy, camped our drinks and he still remembers me when I go in for a beer. Story 3. Not Tinder but Match.com, and right in its infancy long time ago when it was just weirdos doing online dating. I matched and met up with a girl. She was way hotter than me, like crazy hot, and way out of my league. The date was going super well and we'd even made out a bit. Couldn't believe my luck. We decided that as it was going so well we'd keep it going and headed to a bar. We were getting cozy in a corner when a group of African lads came into the bar. I live in a very homogeneous white country to the point that would even be noteworthy, especially at that time. She got up off where we were sitting and began shouting abuse at the lads who came in, saying they didn't belong here and dropping the N-word several times. I felt like that moment in a horror movie where the camera zooms in on your face and the background zooms out. I just got up and walked out. She tried to call me the next day to set up another date, I just ignored her. Clearly freaking nuts. Too good to be true in the truest sense. Story 4. This isn't actually my story. It's my mom's. After getting out of an incredibly long and unpleasant marriage, my mom joined Tinder. She wanted to get her groove back, and I was 100% on her team. I can't emphasize enough that she was not looking for a long-term connection. Her work sent her out of state for a while, and everything seemed perfect. She's going to get her random D and there's no chance of it getting serious. She's sending me screenshots of the guys she's considering as I'm giving her tips on safety. And then she finally picks a guy. I immediately tell her that he is not a wise choice. This guy's profile is 98% red flags by volume. Whatever, she's an adult and I literally cannot stop her. Somehow in the 4 hours they were physically together, he figures out which flight she's taking the next day. He used that to find her final destination and somehow even finds her home address. He uses the public tax information to find her full name and from there hunts down her Facebook. And then finds my dad, calls him on the phone and dishes everything. Sends him pictures and screenshots of conversations. Then he starts sending my mom harassing messages that he loves her but that he can't trust her. Ultimately, my mom had to call the police. Story 5. So I matched with this super attractive tall dude. We meet up for drinks and is charming, all around seems like I hit the jackpot. I'm starting to wonder why on earth is he interested in me. Fast forward to us being back at his place. We are making out and not before long, I'm taking off his pants and with no notice from him, I found out he has a micro penis. This little nub, maybe 2 inches long and about the size of my finger, is staring me in the face. Now, I don't judge and started playing with it, thinking to myself, how are we going to have intercourse? Maybe he's got fanny eating down to an art and it's going to be a hot night. Well, nope, apparently he's not into that. He wants to skip oral and go straight to penetration. I'm on my stomach and he starts giving it to me from behind. He starts to dirty talk as well, asking me how much I love his big wiener and how I like having my puss destroyed. I'm trying as best I can not to laugh, and I don't have the heart to tell him he's just been banging my thighs, not actually penetrating me. It doesn't take long until he finishes and I'm stuck wondering what the hell just happened to me. Story 6. Well, I've only gone on one Tinder date. We talked for a bit and I agreed to pick her up at Starbucks. She looked nothing like her pictures, but I thought I should be nice and at least hang out with her for a bit. We went to a place and the entire house reeked like cat piss and saturated. Then as she proceeded to show me her massive collection of animal tail butt plugs, she screamed at her chihuahua and smacked it right on the nose. Without missing a beat, she just asked if I wanted to make out on the couch. I awkwardly sat down and pretended to look at my phone and made up that my grandma was dying so I could get the heck out. Story 7. I went on a Tinder date several months ago around October and it went really well. The girl had a job, wasn't crazy, and was cute, so we decided to have a second date. The only thing was, the second date was at her Thanksgiving party so she could introduce me to her friends and family, which I thought was a bit too early for. Anyways, I didn't have anything planned that day so I decided to go. My job was to make the jungle juice for the party and it consisted of the usual Everclear, Hawaiian Punch, lemonade powder and ice combo I've used throughout college. It worked wonders and everyone got really drunk. Near the end of the party, my date and her friends told me I did an amazing job on the drink. My date also mentioned that she really liked the fruit I added into there and that everyone at the party was trying to get some. For some reason, that did not sit well with drunk me, so I headed over to the alcohol canister to investigate. I grabbed my trusty ladle and started scraping the bottom of the canisters, and on one of the ladles I found some chunks of meat and pieces of ramen. That's when I realized that someone puked in the jungle juice. Story 8. Met a guy, had a decent conversation, smart, funny, and we shared mutual nerdy hobbies. We decide to meet up at the local gamer bar and play some games while having our first date. Got in, sat down, and realized the dude has no teeth. Says a hack dentist told him they all had to be removed. He couldn't get dentures due to budget, needed to wait for bone shards to fall out of his gums, etc. Proceeded to spit all over our food while talking, which granted, I knew he couldn't help, but if he can hide something this big from someone, what else could he be hiding? Plus I couldn't stomach the thought of making out with someone with no teeth. Story 9. Me and a girl agreed to a hookup. This was a few years ago. We did the traditional swap nudes beforehand to make sure we both liked what we saw, and she shows up to my place 5 months pregnant. I asked how the heck did she hide that stomach, and she said, "Hey, you only asked to see my tits and ass. You never asked for a full body." Touché, but screw you. Story 10. My worst Tinder experience was pretty traumatizing for me at the time. I was a sophomore in college and she was a junior or senior at the same school. The first time we ever hung out, I went over to her apartment and we just watched some Netflix and hung out. Nothing crazy. I was thinking this chick is super cool, we may have something here. So I leave telling her I'd like to see her again if she's down. She told me she would love to and just hit her up whenever and we'll make some plans. We start texting and Snapchatting throughout the week and organized some plans for the following weekend. Out of nowhere, she starts sending me unsolicited nudes. Never once asked for them, and when we were hanging out the weekend prior, there was no sensual activity at any level. We quite literally Netflix and chilled. It caught me off guard, but I was more than cool with it. I'm a young college guy and this hot older chick wants to send me nudes after only hanging out one time. Say less. Fast forward to the weekend, she comes to my apartment and we are hanging out with my roommates watching something on TV. She asks me if she can stay the night, and after sending nudes to me all week, I kind of figured what was up, so in my head I'm like heck yeah. But I tell her of course, and to be polite I offered to sleep on the couch because we've only known each other for about 2 weeks and have only seen each other in person one time prior. She tells me she'd rather have me sleep in my bed with her, so I know it's on. We get to Netflix and chilling in my room and I make a move. We start to hook up and eventually wind up having intercourse. I wore a condom and finished inside of it and tossed it off to my side of the bed. As we are laying there after a few minutes, she gets up abruptly, comes around to my side of the bed and grabs the condom off the floor and runs into the bathroom. I'm a little confused, maybe a little concerned, but kind of brush it off. As I'm laying there in my bed I hear a loud crash in my bathroom and she yells. She asks if she's okay and I get no response. I'm a little concerned thinking this girl just fell in my bathroom and cracked her head open or something. I go to open the door and she is standing in my shower with one leg propped up trying to shove the condom up her fanny after she flipped it inside out. I freaked out, no clue what to do. She's clearly freaked out and probably embarrassed as well. I shut the door and she immediately comes back out, says she's gonna leave and I say sounds good. I never hear from her again. Story 11. Met up with a Tinder girl at Dave & Buster's. She brought me there for a freaking pyramid scheme sign-up presentation. Guess I gotta respect the hustle. Story 12. Fresh off a breakup on campus, match with this really good-looking girl who is talking pure filth. Obviously I'm just an idiot with a hurt heart, so I don't question much. Headed over to a place a few days later. She insisted I come over on a certain day at a specific time. Usually I would have been sketched out, but it was the middle of the day on a Big Ten campus, what exactly could go that south? Half an hour in, her husband came home. I was being used in revenge plot. I pretty much just froze and he started screaming at her in a language I did not speak. She got off bed and I did the same. It was at an apartment slightly off campus where a lot students lived, so I guess I just assumed she had a roommate that wasn't home. I just basically embraced the chaos, grabbed my stuff as fast as I could, and hightailed it out of there. I can only assume it was intentional based on the specific meetup, but maybe it was poor luck. If you've gotten this far and enjoying the content, please leave a comment of your own story. We'd love to make a video of them in the future. Story 13. I went to his place and we hooked up. After the deed, he goes, "You wanna know what I'm really into?" And I was like, sure, and he then grabs my foot. I have a really irrational fear of people touching my feet, so I ran the hell out of there. Anyway, I get to the living room on the way out and it turns out to be his parents' house. I caught a look at his mother and realized she was my old therapist. Story 14. A few years ago I was dating this girl and her father really hated me. Which was a bit odd, as most parents love me, or at least lie about it real well. He was just a huge prick and I always called him on his crap. Anyways, her parents got divorced, we broke up a few months later. Fast forward to around a year later. Me and girl from Tinder were dating for a few months and things were starting to get serious. We are at the point where she wants me to meet her family, mother, stepfather, little sister. Why not? I have no problems meeting them, let's do it, I said. She told me how excited her stepdad was to meet me, as it turns out we both happen to be Kansas City Chiefs fans. Well, screw me if it wasn't the same asshole father of my ex-girlfriend. Story 15. My buddy isn't the smartest man. He picked a chick up and drove to a motel. They were walking into the room and she says, "Oh crap, I forgot my purse in the car, do you mind if I go grab it?" He says, "Yeah, that's fine," and tosses her the keys. 5 minutes later he walks outside wondering where she is and found out his car is gone. Story 16. I don't use Tinder. However, my roommate loves it and she's brought back numerous visitors. Which is fine, except for the fact that the apartment is tiny and we share a room. And also the fact that my roommate doesn't really care what I end up seeing. And, as it turns out, most guys don't care about having another girl in the room either. Some take it as an opportunity for a threesome. My roommate is my Tinder nightmare. Story 17. First date, we went to see a movie. She brought her sister along without consulting me first, and I somehow ended up paying for both of their tickets. Bit of a doormat, old me. We went to see Star Wars: The Force Awakens. Turns out, neither of them had seen a Star Wars film before, nor had any idea at all what was going on. Date ended at McDonald's after the movie with more than an hour of her eating fries one at a time, and her sister talking crap about basically everyone at her work. To this day I'm not sure what that date was even about. There was no second date. Story 18. This girl I matched with just messaged to troll me. I was like, hey, what's up? And she was like, don't talk to me unless you plan on banging me with your 9-inch wiener. I forgot what my reply was, but she obviously never messaged back. Then a week later I'm getting McDonald's and this girl was the one who handed me my food. She recognizes me instantly and just had this total look of fear in her eyes. I walked out of there so quick. That poor girl thought I purposely sought her out to confront her or something. Story 19. Matched with this cute girl a few years back. Went out for drinks. It was going well that we decided to head out to the beach with a 6-pack to stargaze and make out. Somehow we ended up on a stolen sailboat at 2 a.m. with her ex, an old drunken boat repairman who made copies of the keys to steal the boat, and her dog. After arguing with her ex for 30 minutes, she blacks out and falls asleep. Her dog is scared out of its mind and is crapping everywhere. Her ex starts tripping on acid and yells at me that I have to take care of her and never hurt her. Then runs to the bow of the boat to finish his trip. The old drunken boat thief is just chilling and chugging vodka like it was water. I said screw it, cleaned up after the dog and brought the poor pup inside the cabin with me, then passed out. Next morning I woke up to the girl and her ex screaming at each other about some car crash and whose fault it was. The old boat thief was gone and I had no clue where I parked. I left without them noticing, got some coffee and breakfast, and wandered around the harbor until I found my car. Never talked with her again, but I didn't delete Tinder. Story 20. We lived about 25 minutes from each other, so agreed to meet at the beach pier about halfway between. Before meeting, we had been texting and he seemed totally normal. I was already at the pier when he texted me saying he can't meet me there because his license is revoked and it's too far for him to walk. I should have just left then, but I agreed to meet him at a pizza place closer to him. I get there and I'm standing outside when I see him and quickly realize the pics from his profile were at least 3 to 5 years old. Homeboy looks like the dollar store version of himself. Greasy, looks like he hasn't showered in days, hair undone, and holes in his shirt. I awkwardly give him a side hug and suggest we get a seat, and he says, no, we're not getting pizza. Let's go to the park. I awkwardly say okay, and as he talks, I realize his gums and tongue ring are stained black from smoking. By this point, I am completely turned off and am just keeping up with formalities. So we get to the park and find a bench to talk, and before I can sit down, homie pulls me onto his lap, squeezing me and saying, goodness, baby girl, you are so freaking cute. I awkwardly scooch away and try to get a conversation going. He pulls out his phone and starts texting for a few minutes, not really listening to me, before interrupting with, have you smoked? My friend is a plug, we could go back to my place for a bowl. I decline. He goes, come on baby girl, my place is just right there, we could have some fun too. I decline again. Next thing you know, he pulls me close by the face and whispers, you're so innocent, before broad-tongued licking my face from chin to ear. Shell-shocked, I just sit there for a moment processing what the heck just happened as he keeps talking about weed before I decide to fake an urgent phone call and leave. Story 21. Chatted with this girl for about 2 weeks. Every conversation went well and eventually I got her number and she started sharing nudes and speaking dirty. Late on evening after a stressful work day, she talks me into driving an hour to come get coffee with her. She spends the next hour and a half non-stop talking about her ex and how she has to see him at the bank and all this personal upset ex-girlfriend stuff. She cuts me off anytime I try to speak and changed the subject right back to him. A day later I get a text about how I didn't do any talking and I was too boring to be anything more than just friends with. She got irate when I pointed out she would not allow me to speak and only wanted to talk about her ex-boyfriend when we have never once had a slow or boring conversation before meeting up. Story 22. First date, she wanted me to get into a bar fight with the perfectly friendly guy who'd bought us a round of shots that night. Why? Because she found out he was a Scorpio. Story 23. Talked to him for 2 weeks before we went out and there were no red flags, so we ended up going out to dinner. I said I hadn't been out in a while because I was trying to save money for a washer and dryer. He told me instead of saving for that I should save for a boob job. I didn't even know how to reply, so he followed up with, "No, it's not a bad thing. My sister and mom both had small tits and got boob jobs and they look amazing." This is all before the waitress even brought our drinks. I just got up and left. Story 24. I messaged a girl who wanted to meet up, so I go out to the coffee shop and she's not there. I ask her what's up and she totally admits to being a dude catfishing me just so he could check me out in public, and goes on a rant about what a shame it is that I'm a lesbian because he'd totally do me. I feel like the creepiest part for me was that he never once tried to get nudes or anything, which I'd at least understand the effort for. He just wanted to stare at me in public. Story 25. Not me, but I worked as a bartender for a while and heard a lot of horror stories secondhand. This one girl who was a regular came in and told me about an awful Tinder date she had. Not sure of the specifics, but it wasn't bad enough for her to not bring him home afterward. He leaves the next morning, she brushes it off as a one-night stand, and a few days later, her debit card gets declined. Odd, since she is a bartender herself at a fairly busy place in our city and is good about saving and usually flush with cash. She goes to check her debit card, turns out there were a bunch of charges at Best Buy, Grubhub, a bunch of other stuff. Curious, she checks her credit card too. There she found a bunch of charges for streaming services. Netflix, Hulu, Sling, everything. She goes to confront the guy and finds out he deleted his profile. But she remembers a friend they had in common on Facebook. She reaches out to the mutual friend to try and track him down, and it turns out he did the exact same thing to that mutual friend. Not sure of what the outcome was, but she was out for blood after a mediocre hookup turned into a serious case of identity theft. Story 26. Not me, my dad. Not Tinder either, it was Match.com. My dad had been on Match for about 3 months with some success. He's a tall Australian man who's decent looking, so he had some interest. One weekend he got sent his first nude, which he thought was strange, but brushed it off. Later that week he got 6 more nudes from the same woman. Before he blocked her, he decided that he would open them just for kicks. 5 of the pictures are just straight up fanny shots, which he said were incredibly unappealing and had terrible lighting. The 6th picture, however, was something different. The woman was standing in her bra in front of a mirror, puss out, winking, with a bunch of herbs shoved in her bra. Basil, parsley, thyme, all that good stuff. The caption on the picture was "Spice Rack." She was swiftly blocked after my dad stopped laughing long enough to find the block button. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to Thread Talk for more content like this. Also, don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss out. Have a dope day and we'll see you in the next video. Cheers!